Here's how I do it. This is chapter 1, deciding to sell. Okay. Now I'm Pamela. I walk over to Daniel and say, you know what, Daniel, I'm probably not even supposed to know this, but a little birdie told me that you were thinking about selling your house. Now you're not probably, it may not even be the right time to sell. I don't know. I mean, it may be a terrible decision for you to sell. You know, maybe the worst decision you could come up with right now. However, let me just share with you that I've written a book, and it goes through the process of selling your home. And I would like to give you a copy. I just went to the locker and, pulled it out. Here it is. You can just run and go throw it in the locker. But this is a book that I wrote to help sellers like you that are thinking about selling, but you're not quite ready. All right, Daniel, you have a great day. And I start to walk away. All right. Now, what's Daniel going to do? Work with me. What, Daniel, unmute yourself. What are you going to do then with that?
After I get the book or before?
Yeah, you got the book. I'm like, hey man, I know I'm not even probably supposed to know this, but I have written a resource. It's going to help you. You hire anybody you want. You probably already have a realtor anyway. Yeah. But I just want to give this to you because I see you coming to the gym. We hang out. So this is just for you. And then I start to walk away. What are you going to do when I start to walk away?
I'll probably say, hold up. Let me.
Hey, hold on, man. Wait. That's called a takeaway. That's a sales strategy. It's called a takeaway. So what happened was I went from him pushing me away to him saying, hold on a second. Because why? I gave him an IOV. That's called an IOV. What's an IOV? It's an item of value. I gave him something valuable. Okay. And then I walked away. Now he wants to talk to me. Okay. Now who wants to talk? I don't. I'm going back to my machine. I'm like, man, I'm right in the middle of a set, bro. Did you have a question? You see, now I'm playing hard to get a little bit. See? So if somebody's deciding to sell, the last thing that they want to do is talk to you. But they do want information, and they will appreciate information. So when you find out that somebody's considering the idea of selling, that's when you position your book in front of them. And then you walk away. You give them a couple of sentences, and then you start to stepping. If they don't call you back, keep stepping. It's no problem. Okay. But the reality is most people will call, they'll stop you and say, hey, hold on a minute. Right now they want to talk to you. Man, I really appreciate this. I can keep this. Yeah. That's just for you, man. You probably got an agent, but I just want to make sure, because you're friends with Bradford. That's my boy. And I just want to make sure you're taken care of. You know what you're getting into. So keep that. I'm going back. I got another set to do over here. I'm short on time. Well, but can I ask you another question? You see, that's called a takeaway. So that's how you use it when somebody's deciding to sell. You're not trying to push it. You're not trying to sell them. You just give it to them and you walk away. You start to step. Now, we also use it if there's an expired that I'm going to meet with tomorrow or the next day. From a pre-listing standpoint, I use it when they're deciding to sell. I also, so in other words, I drop that off in my pre-listing package, okay, a couple of days before we meet, or I have my runner do it. Welcome to the Success with Listings podcast, where we help you get success in the real estate game the easy way. Now you can get off the roller coaster of feast and famine and out of the rat race of competing with every other agent in town. Hi, I'm Knolly Williams. I took over 1,000 listings during my first 10 years in the real estate game, and in this podcast, I show you how to have success with listings. Let's go. So my promise is that you're going to leave every weekly session with a new strategy, idea, or mind shift that will elevate your business so you can spend more time doing what you love while making more money. All right, who's in for that? All right, cool. So that's my promise. Now, the tools of the listing trade, we're talking about the seller guide, okay? And what I want to do here is I want to walk you through some important scripts for how to use this thing, okay? How to use the seller guide is my book that I wrote called Consider It Sold. It is by far the #1 tool that has helped me get more listings than any other tool. And I showed you the psychology behind why that is. The last couple of weeks, we've been tapping into that. And today I want to get deeper into psychology, but I also want to get into the key scripts. Okay. These scripts are going to help you save 10+ hours on every listing. They're going to turn your clients into raving fans, because you don't just want past clients, you want fans, okay? And they're going to help you get more repeat and referral business, okay? Now we meet every Monday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. The Zoom link is inside the classroom. So if you ever miss out on that, just jump in there where I just showed you, and you'll know, okay. In fact, put it in your calendar. So easy. Just post it in your calendar, and there it is. Now let's talk about this. Your seller guide is really there to win more sellers and leverage your time. That's what it's all about. How do you spend less time and make more money? Okay, not spend more money, right? We don't want to spend more time. We don't want to spend more money. All right, those are two things that we want to conserve. I can't tell you how many people or how many listeners sorry, I unplugged. Just by having this tool in my, in my tool belt. And it's 13,426 words, completely editable. You edit it to the way you want it. It leverages your time, and it builds trust, and it wins listings. Okay, does all of that. Now let's get into some scripts. So, and what I'm going to do specifically is I'm going to share with you. Hold on, I don't want that there. I'm going to share with you every single, the name of every chapter. Remember that I promised you I was going to teach you how to use the book, even if no one reads it. Okay. Someone said, well, Knolly, what's the point of having a book if nobody reads it? At the end of the day, nobody cares, guys. Okay. Don't write that down, right? I'm going to write down, Knolly said nobody cares, but at the root of it all, they just don't. Okay. They just want a result. They want their home sold. They want out of the pain. They want to get through this, and they want to know that they're working with someone competent, and they want to have the best. That's it. Okay. So at the end of the day, just bear in mind that if they don't read your book, who cares? What you're going after is the listing. Okay. Even if they only read the table of contents. Okay. Make sure they read that at least. Okay. But if they only read the table of contents, how can you use this tool to win more listings? Let's look at it. Let me see if I got any. Somebody says, can you discuss farming and the tools agents can utilize for farm? Yeah, we'll talk about that if we've got time. And then, what's up? Mieko in the house, 5 a.m. All right. Appreciate it, Mieko. You are in the house. All right. So number one, the first chapter is called Deciding to Sell. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's say, for example, on that, let me stop my share. So this chapter is called, oh, you guys can't see me. Sorry. My camera went out, and you guys are like just talking to a blank face. Next time, I know my man Daniel's got my back, right, Daniel? Or Pamela? Just say, hey man, we can't see you. Not that you have to see me to learn. Sometimes, actually, it might be better if they don't see me, Paul. Let's try this for it. I'm just kidding. All right, so let's say somebody's deciding to sell. And let's say Bradford and Daniel are at the gym, okay? Now, Bradford knows Pamela, but Daniel doesn't really know Pamela, okay? Now, stick with me here. And they're all at the gym together. They go to the gym, they say, hey, what's up? And they kind of, sort of know that you're a realtor, but they're not, people don't, they know you're a realtor, but they don't really want to talk to you about selling their home until they're ready. How many of y'all know that? How many of you guys know that the last person that somebody wants to talk to is a salesperson, okay? Or a person that they perceive to be a salesperson, right? Like, let's say the last time you bought a car, okay, just think about it for a minute. Did you just drive up to the car lot and you just drove in and you said, hey, I'm ready to talk to a salesperson? Or did you do some research ahead of time before you got to the car lot? How many of y'all did research first before you went, right? Because you don't want to go up, you don't want to just show up and be sold. See, and you've probably written this down before. Everybody wants to buy. Nobody wants to be sold. Okay. So now Bradford and Daniel are at the gym, and Pamela's a realtor. And Bradford knows that Pamela's a great agent. And he tells Dan, and then Daniel's talking to Bradford, say, man, I'm thinking about selling my house. The family, you just got this job offer, da 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 da. Now, if you're not a realtor, people will talk to you all day long about their ideas of selling their house and all that. But once they know you're a realtor, they don't really want to talk to you until they want to talk to you. Okay, that's how it is. So now they both know that Pamela's a realtor, but they're at the gym together. And then Daniel tells Bradford that he's thinking about selling his house. And so Bradford mentions to Pamela or mentions to Daniel, hey man, Pamela's a realtor. Yeah, but I'm not ready yet, man. I don't really want to talk to Pamela about it yet. I'm just telling you, bro, because we're working on the same machines together, and I'm just, we're just having a conversation. Now Bradford goes and tells Pamela, hey, did you know that Daniel's thinking about selling his house? Pamela's like, no, he didn't tell me nothing about it. So now Pamela walks over to Daniel and says, hey, I heard you thinking about selling your house. What's Daniel's response going to be? Yeah, exactly. Right. Probably Daniel's going to say something like that. Well, who told you that? Right. Because I was just talking to my boy. I wasn't trying to get a realtor involved. You know what I'm saying? So here's how I do it. This is chapter 1, deciding to sell. Okay. Now I'm Pamela. I walk over to Daniel and say, you know what, Daniel, I'm probably not even supposed to know this, but a little birdie told me that you were thinking about selling your house. Now it may not even be the right time to sell. I don't know. I mean, it may be a terrible decision for you to sell. Maybe the worst decision you could come up with right now. However, let me just share with you that I've written a book, and it goes through the process of selling your home. And I would like to give you a copy. I just went to the locker and pulled it out. Here it is. You can just run and go throw it in the locker. But this is a book that I wrote to help sellers like you that are thinking about selling, but you're not quite ready. All right, Daniel, you have a great day. And I start to walk away. All right. Now, what's Daniel going to do? Work with me. What, Daniel? Unmute yourself. What are you going to do then with that?
After I get the book or before?
Yeah, you got the book. I'm like, hey man, I know I'm not even probably supposed to know this, but I have written a resource. It's going to help you. You hire anybody you want. You probably already have a realtor anyway. Yeah. But I just want to give this to you because I see you coming to the gym. We hang out. So this is just for you. And then I start to walk away. What are you going to do when I start to walk away?
I'll probably say, hold up. Let me.
Hey, hold on, man. Wait. That's called a takeaway. That's a sales strategy. It's called a takeaway. So what happened was I went from him pushing me away to him saying, hold on a second. Because why? I gave him an IOV. That's called an IOV. What's an IOV? It's an item of value. I gave him something valuable. Okay. And then I walked away. Now he wants to talk to me. Okay. Now who wants to talk? I don't. I'm going back to my machine. I'm like, man, I'm right in the middle of a set, bro. Did you have a question? You see, now I'm playing hard to get a little bit. See? So if somebody's deciding to sell, the last thing that they want to do is talk to you. But they do want information, and they will appreciate information. So when you find out that somebody's considering the idea of selling, that's when you position your book in front of them, and then you walk away. You give them a couple of sentences, and then you start to stepping. If they don't call you back, keep stepping. It's no problem. Okay. But the reality is most people will call, they'll stop you and say, hey, hold on a minute. Right now they want to talk to you. Man, I really appreciate this. I can keep this. Yeah. That's just for you, man. You probably got an agent, but I just want to make sure, because you're friends with Bradford. That's my boy. And I just want to make sure you're taken care of. You know what you're getting into. So keep that. I'm going back. I got another set to do over here. I'm short on time. Well, but can I ask you another question? You see, that's called a takeaway. So that's how you use it when somebody's deciding to sell. You're not trying to push it. You're not trying to sell them. You just give it to them and you walk away. You start to step. Now, we also use it if there's an expired that I'm going to meet with tomorrow or the next day. From a pre-listing standpoint, I use it when they're deciding to sell. I also, so in other words, I dropped that off in my pre-listing package, okay, a couple of days before we meet, or I have my runner do it. Another way that I like to do this before is what I call a listing two-step. So the listing two-step is if somebody's deciding to sell, by the way, if they want to meet with you, they pretty much want to sell, okay? Because the last thing they do is call you. They might have been thinking about selling for 6 months, but the last thing they do is call you. So anytime you hear of anybody in your database that's hinting around the idea of selling, then you want to get them your book as soon as possible. But don't try to sell them. Just say, look, I don't know if this is right for you. It may be a terrible timing. The market may not even be right. In fact, it probably isn't. It's probably not a good market for you to sell right now. However, since such and such cousin so-and-so said you're thinking about selling, I want to make sure you know that I have a book that helps you with that through that process. And then you start to walk away. Okay. So you want to give them, you want to give it to them early, but there's a way to do it. All right. Now let's go back to, let's look at chapter 2. And I'm going to go through every chapter this way. So marketing your home for sale. All right. So the big reason why people think that what's the number one reason homes don't sell? We already know it's price. Okay. But what is the reason that sellers believe? They think that the agent didn't market their home correctly, or that we do something magical to position their home so that it sells. And if it doesn't sell, it must be my fault or your fault, right? So what you want to explain to them is, look, I'm going to market your home like this, okay? So that there'll be no excuses in their mind for why the home didn't sell. It's not the marketing, okay? Now, what is the purpose of marketing, by the way? What does the marketing do? When you market a home, what's the point of marketing a home? Anybody got an answer?
Exposure.
Exposure. What else? What's the number one reason you market a home? I think that's a better way to put it. The number one reason why you're going to market their home.
To sell it?
Sell it, yeah.
Sell it. Who else? The number one reason you market a home, guys, is to get more listings. That's it. I hate to be crass, but your marketing of that home is not going to sell the home. I remember this, my first, one of my first mentors, actually my very first mentor, Arnold Solis, he would tell me, man, we don't do blankety blank. He uses colorful language. We don't do blankety blank to sell homes. And he was the number one listing agent in that office until I came along. Okay. And then he was number 2. Okay. But the reality is he was right. I hated to admit it because of my ego, but you're not going to sell the house. The house sells itself. Okay. You put it out there. So chances are, what are the chances that you're personally going to sell that house versus another agent selling it? Yeah. It's probably 99% another agent's going to sell it or bring a buyer, because you may not have the buyer pool of the buyers that are looking for that particular property. So the reality is marketing does 2 things. Number one, it pacifies the seller because they expect you to market their home. It doesn't sell the house. I've sold over 1,000 homes, 1,200 houses. And I know that all the marketing that I used to spend $10,000 a month marketing my listings. And the point of it was to get more business. That's it. Okay. Again, it did pacify the seller though. The seller expected me to market their home. I marketed it. Okay. So there would be no excuses. Now, obviously, if we didn't have MLS and we didn't have a cooperative system and so on like that, yes, we would have to do all the stuff that they do in the commercial real estate space that actually does get these things sold, because the exposure and getting it out there. But the reality is most of your clients are going to, they're going to go on realtor.com or Zillow. They're going to find, even if you have them set up on a search, they're pretty much going to find what they're looking for. And when they walk into the house, there is not a single thing on planet Earth that you can do to sell that home. The home has to speak to them emotionally. It's just like when we walked into this house, okay? As soon as we walked in, I already knew I was about to write a check. I already knew, because it's the only house that we walked into. Bradford will tell you, he's been here. Bradford and Mary, his wife, spent a week here. And this is the only house that Josie walked into and spent an hour probably an hour and a half, and she did video of every room. I mean, it was done. Okay, it was done. And nobody can sell you. I'm not that good. I can't sell somebody something that's 700 or 800,000 or $1 million. I can't, I'm not that good. Okay. The home sells itself. All right. So the marketing for the home is it pacifies the seller because they expect you to be doing it, and it generates a crap ton more listings. That's that, you know, that's the reality. But the question is that sellers will say is, hey, how are you going to market my home? And chapter 2 answers that. Like, look, I know that a lot of real estate agents out there are not going to do anything. They use the 3 Ps. How many of y'all know the 3 Ps of realtor marketing? Y'all know that, the 3 Ps? And I tell my sellers, I said, they're just going to use the 3 Ps. Okay. They're going to put a sign in the yard. They're going to put it on the MLS, and they're going to pray that it'll sell. That's the 3 Ps of realtor marketing. But let me tell you, Mr. Seller, I have a 21-step marketing plan, and I don't even call it a marketing plan anymore. I call it a sales system. We're going to go into all that when I get into pre-listing package. Okay. I have the unique Knolly sales system that I implore on every single listing. Can I show you what I'm going to do to get your home sold? They're like, yeah. And then I go through every single point. Okay. So that's marketing their home for sale. And that's a script you can use around that. Now, pricing their home. The pricing, how to price their home is something that I want to position in front of them before I meet with them, because it does tackle some very tough conversations. And so I'll say something like, look, we're going to be meeting tomorrow, and the purpose of our meeting is to come up with a price. Why, Cindy? Because I already know that when you see everything that I offer, you're going to want to hire me. Now, it depends. I don't say that to everybody, but sometimes, and I'll throw a little joke in there like that. I say, I already know. You've seen my stuff, Cindy. You already know. Okay, you've seen you know, I've got 200 and some, you know, 5-star reviews. You already know that. I'm not going to be there to sell myself. Okay, Cindy, you don't want to hear about me. You already know. But we do need to establish a price. And in order for us to do this, Cindy, I need you to read chapter 3 before we meet. Can you do that for me? And then what does Cindy say? Say, Cindy, could you do that for me? Would you be offended if I asked you to read chapter 3 before we meet so that we could set the best price, so we get the most money for your home? Now, here's what I found, Cindy. I found that most of the sellers that I meet with, okay, if they've read this chapter before we meet, they get more money and they sell in less time. In fact, they get the most money possible. So now I've just incentivized Cindy to read the chapter. Okay. So that's the scripts I use around pricing. I want to make sure that they read that, because I don't want to have those tough conversations in front of them for the first time. I want them to have read that, absorbed it, come to reality, and now we're talking. Okay. And they've already read that. It's like 6-7 pages. That's it. Now, getting your home ready for market. Now, I've signed I'm sitting with Cindy. We've already signed the paperwork. She's ready to get the house on the market. And I say, look, Cindy, remember we talked about a couple things that you need to do, or we would be preferred if you did prior to getting it out on the market. So this chapter right here, chapter 4, I want you to read that chapter. Just go through it. It's got the checklist. I've already checked off some things in there that we discussed. And make sure that you get all those things done, read through that chapter. And then when you're ready, we're going to schedule the photographer and the drone, all that stuff, but only when you're ready. So the next step for you, Cindy, is to go ahead and read chapter 4 and just let me know when you feel like you're ready. Okay. So you see how that's another script, by the way. And you see how I'm giving bite size. I'm not asking people to read the whole book at once. I'm using the guide to guide them. Let me ask you a question. And we're barely at chapter 4. Let me ask you a question. What percentage of what you sit down and tell a seller do you think they actually remember after you leave the kitchen table? Like, you're sitting there for an hour, telling them all about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, your listing strategy, everything like that. How much of that do you actually think they remember? Throw it in the chat or unmute. What do you think?
10%.
10%. What, Jim, what do you think, Jim? I saw you unmute. Were you unmuting?
I did, but I also put in the chat. Yeah,
Oh,
I'd
you
say somewhere from 5–10%.
5 or 10%. You guys are absolutely right. Sometimes it'll be 15 if you're a genius, okay? If you're a genius like Jim, you might remember 15%. So what we're saying is that 85 to 90%, and thank you, Pamela, too, of what you tell them, they're going to forget. That's why you have a leave behind. You've got your book to do all that for you. The last thing I want to happen, Jim, is for Cindy to be calling me and saying, no, what did you say about that again? Oh, that just, you got a system for that. Oh, Cindy, you're confused about what we discussed. That's very normal. I don't remember half of what I said at the meeting either, Cindy. But the good news is, go back to chapter 4. Oh yeah, the book. Yeah, you remember the book. Go to chapter 4. Don't read the whole thing. Just read chapter 4, and that'll summarize it for you. And then call me with any questions, Cindy. Would that be okay? And Cindy's going to be like, okay. Boom, click, done. That's a 60-second conversation. Instead of Jim having to spend, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes rehashing the same information that he did at the kitchen table. Okay. So that's a big time saver. How many of y'all are starting to see how this is already saving time, how these scripts can be used? All right, let's keep going. Chapter 5 is really going to be self-explanatory, right? Choosing the right agent. Okay. So obviously, that is a very, it's a subtle way of pointing them right to you, like, duh, hey, hello, here I am. And so it's written in such a way where they have no choice but to hire you. Okay. So you really don't even have to speak to that chapter, but you might say, hey, I know that you already have a realtor. You have a family, and this happens a lot. I had one gal, her cousin was a realtor. I had one lady, her sister was a realtor. Okay. And I said, look, I know your sister's a realtor. Just read chapter 5, how to decide to pick the right agent. And that's just going to help you know what questions to ask her, just to help you. I mean, you're already listing with somebody else. I already know that. Okay. And or if they say, hey, we already have an agent. I say, well, that's interesting, Bradford. And I'm glad you have an agent. How committed are you? And then they'll laugh like, well, we haven't signed anything. Well, that's no problem. I think if you've got a great friend in the business, I think you should list with them. But another thing that I think, Bradford, is that you should know what you're getting, even though they're a friend. I like doing business with my friends, okay? But I also like getting my home sold, okay? Do you want to make a friend happy, or you want to get your home sold? Preferably both. So just on the sly, okay, Bradford, what I want you to do is read chapter 5 of my book. You're not going to hire me, that's fine. But read chapter 5 of my book, just so that you know that you're asking the right questions and that you're getting what you want from your friend or from your sister or from whoever else. I've had so many people, guys, to go read chapter 5. And then they're like so messed up after that. They're like, I really want to hire Bradford, but my sister. So like whenever that happens, I say, look, I get it. Your sister's in real estate. You want to work with your sister. Obviously, I mean, you don't want to be, I had a guy, Hollis Dean, okay? He called me up. He said, man, Knolly, I need my home sold. I want you to sell it. I was like, Hollis, your dad's a realtor, bro. I couldn't understand it. I'm like, man, your father's a realtor. He was like, yeah, but I want my home sold. Right? After they read chapter 5, that's how they're going to feel. So what I do is I say, look, Bradford, I get it. You want to use your sister, and that's normal. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something special. For your sister, Bradford, what I'm going to do is I'll work with her on this deal. Okay. So if she happens to find a realtor, we'll negotiate. What we used to say is I'll split my commission with her. We can't say that anymore. But we'll make sure that she's taken care of financially. She can work with any buyers while I work with getting your home sold. How's that sound? And I start doing like this. And then pretty soon they're like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So we don't have to cut your sister out. I mean, she could still be involved in the process. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have the sister have her sign writer on the sign, so that, or some kind of co-listing, not even really a co-listing, like it's my listing, but any buyer leads I can share with that person. Okay. So that's a strategy I use all the time. I see some questions coming in, but let me go through the last 3 chapters. Now, handling showings. Handling showings. So now, the house is on the market, and let's say it took them 3 weeks between the time that I sat down with them and the time that their home was ready to, chapter 4, getting the home ready. They painted, they've done whatever we talked about, and we got the pictures taken. Now it's a month later, and we're going to go on the market. Okay. Will they remember how to handle showings? No, they're not going to remember that. So now I say, hey, Cindy, I know it's been a month since we met. A lot of stuff that we talked about, you don't remember. No problem. That's the reason why I wrote the book. Go to chapter 6. We just put it on MLS. And I want you, Cindy, to go to chapter 6. And I want you to read that chapter because it's going to talk all about how we're going to handle showings. Okay. So that you're set up the right way for when the home is shown. Is that okay, Cindy? Now, by the way, Cindy, if you have any questions, shoot me a text or give me a call. Now, what's Cindy going to do? She's going to read through the chapter. She's not going to have a single question because it answers every question. Now, if she does, she's going to text me, which never happens, or she's going to give me a call. But what I did was I eliminated a 30 or 45-minute phone call. Okay, where I had to walk through, well, how about my dogs? Do I have to let the dogs out, the pets? Do I take the dogs with me? No, we cover all that in chapter 6. It's a great question. By the way, that's a great question, Cindy. Let me tell you the short answer, but the best answer is go through chapter 6 because there's probably something else that you've overlooked about how to handle showings. Okay, and my sellers that do their showings the right way get offers. That's what they do. They get offers, right? So go read chapter 6. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and I'll answer those for you. Now, let's say an offer comes in. Okay. Now, I know what a lot of you do when an offer comes in, you get excited. You want to call Cindy, you want to walk through the offer, and you want to spend an hour on the phone with her, a Zoom, 30, 40 minutes, or drive over to whatever. I don't do that. I say, look, Cindy, I call, ring, ring, Cindy. Hey, guess what? We got an offer, or a lot of times I say I, but sometimes I say we. Hey, I generated an offer on your property, Cindy. I'm pretty excited about it, but it's up to you. Okay, it's completely up to you. Now, what I want you to do, Cindy, is I'm going to send the offer over. I haven't sent it yet, but I'm going to email you the offer. Okay. And I want you to go back to my seller guide, and I want you to open up chapter 7. It's called Working with Offers. And I want you to read the offer, and I want you to read chapter 7 along with the offer. And then let's set up a call. Okay. So I can answer any questions you have about the offer. Now, what happens? Cindy's going to follow my instructions because that's the way we do it. She's going to feel like she's been well informed by reading through the chapter. She's going to read it along with the offer. It's going to dispel a lot of myths. It's going to diffuse a lot of emotional, through psychology, it's going to diffuse a lot of emotion. And then when she does call me, maybe the following day, because she's still processing it all, we have a 10-minute conversation. That's it, 5 minutes. Like, yeah, Knolly, I read what you said. And, first we were going to do this, but the more I think about it, it does make sense the way you put it. And so here's what I want us to do. Boom. And Cindy's just going to tell me how she wants to counter or accept or whatever it is. Now, I just eliminated having a 45-minute conversation and educating Cindy back and forth. Well, Cindy, it's not really that way, whatever. Okay, that's a big time saver. And then, and I use that every time I have an offer. I make sure they go back to chapter 7, read that chapter. It's like 7, 8 pages. Read that chapter and look along with the offer. And then finally, we're at the closing table, closing on the sale. Okay. Now, Cindy wants to know, hey, what do I have to do to get ready for the closing? You know what, Cindy, that's a great question. A lot of sellers ask me that question, and I've written it down in chapter 8. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. I keep forgetting about that. Yeah, no, don't worry about it, Cindy. I mean, it's easy to overlook, but the reason why I went the extra step and put it in writing is just so you won't overlook anything. Because I can tell you right now, But you got to write it down and you got to go through all. Look, just go back to chapter 8. It's going to help you get ready for the sale of the home. So don't worry about it. Okay? If you have any questions, call me after you read that chapter. Cindy goes back, she reads the chapter, she has no questions. Okay, because it's very clear. Now we're at the closing table. Okay, we're at the closing table. And I sit down and Cindy's got there. She's, she's with her significant other. And we sit down, we're there, and we say, hey, I look at her, I say, hey, Cindy, let me ask you a question. Did I do everything I promised I would do to get your home sold? I start shaking my head like this. See, even she's shaking her head now. I haven't even sold her house. She's like, yeah, you did. So Cindy's like, she's like, yeah, Knolly, you really did. Yeah, Bradford, you did everything you said. Yeah. And here we are at the closing table. We got it done, didn't we? And you know what helped us every step of the way, Cindy? The seller guide, my seller guide. It helped you, right? Yeah, that was very helpful. Well, here's what I want you to do, Cindy. I've got 5 copies of my seller guide. In fact, I brought them with me. I've got them right here. So I'm going to give you 5 copies of my seller guide, Cindy. And here's what I want you to do with them. Okay, don't give them out to anybody. Treat these like gold, okay? Because I spend a lot of money printing these and all that. You don't have to tell them it's $3, okay? Look, I spend a lot of money printing these up and everything, but I want you to freely give them to anybody that's thinking about selling their home. And then let them know that I'll reach out to them, put them on a 3-way text, okay? And because I want to provide the same level of service, Cindy, to your friends and family as I provided to you. That's what I want to do for you. And then I hand Cindy 5 copies of my book. And then I say, hey, Cindy, by the way, when you run low on these, you just let me know. And I'll send you, I'll restock them for you. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is when Cindy's at work, she's at the water cooler. By the way, you have to coach and teach people how to recruit business for you. See, the reality is if you have a database of 200 or 300 people, you actually have an army of recruiters, but they don't know how to recruit. Can you ever imagine sending an army out with no gun, no sword, nothing to even fight with? Okay, now I've just given Cindy tools to hit the battlefield. She's got a sword, she's got a gun, she's got everything she needs to go in the battle, right? She's got my resources. And so she's got the book, she's at work, she goes to the water cooler, goes grab a cup of coffee, and a colleague is talking about selling their house. Hey, we're thinking about selling our house. Da, da, da. Oh, you are? Hold on 1 second. Boom. Cindy runs back to her cubicle. She grabs a copy of my book. Okay. She runs back over the copy. This is my realtor. What? That's your, yeah, this is my realtor. Now she's bragging on you. She's bragging on you, right? Because you gave her a tool to use. Now, what would happen? Let's back this up. What would happen if I gave Cindy at the closing table, same script, and I gave Cindy 5 business cards? Say, hey, Cindy, here's 5 of my business cards. Oh, I did everything I said. Yeah, here's 5 business cards. What would happen with those cards? Y'all tell me. I see you shaking your head, right? What would happen?
Thrown out. Going into the garbage eventually.
Yeah. So, and I say, Jim, I like that. So I say, they may not throw them away because they got the big cowboy hat and all that. But worse, they might get put in her purse. That's worse than throwing it away, by the way. I mean, it's never going to be seen again, right? It goes in the bottom of the purse, it's done. Right? I'm just giving y'all a pot shot. But the reality is, who knows what's going to happen? They're not going to throw away your book. It's not going to happen. And at $3 a copy, guess what? You gave Cindy 5 copies. It cost you $15. Okay, that's it. And now Cindy's out there recruiting business for you. Now, when I call Cindy a month after she's been in the house, I say, hey, Cindy, you've been in the house for a month. How you like it? You enjoying it? Oh, Cindy, have you come across anybody to give my book to? Oh, yeah, the book. Yeah, you know what? I am. Cindy, here's what you're going to do. I know you haven't given away any yet. That's okay. Take them to work. Put them in your cubicle. Would you do that, Cindy? Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, put them in your cubicle. And anytime somebody's thinking about selling their house, just give them a copy and then let them know that I'm going to reach out to them. I'm not going to sell them. I'm not going to sell them. Okay. I'm going to reach out to them and ask them if they have any questions. I'm going to help them. Okay. As a resource, even if they hire another agent. Okay. Even if you know they have another agent, give them a copy of my book. Okay. So as I'm calling Cindy, I'm still educating her on how to recruit business for me. So those are scripts that I wanted to share with you guys. I know we went probably over longer than I thought just on that, but I want you to understand that even if I was just using the table of contents itself, I could actually use this tool with all the scripts. I'm probably giving you 10 scripts. I could use this tool, okay, to generate more business for me and save me a crap ton of time. And if you're not using it that way, you really are doing yourself and your business a disservice. You're working way too hard, and I want you to work smart. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Success with Listings podcast. If you are serious about taking your real estate career to the highest heights, making more money and helping more clients while working less hours and spending more time with your family, be sure to get your copy of my free book, Triple My Listing, absolutely free at successwithlistings.com. Now, you want to be sure that you subscribe to the podcast and check out successwithlistings.com to get your copy of my free book. Hey, I'll see you on the next one.